Beyond the board. My move is the last one. I win. Michael smiled as he rolled the dice and moved his piece. Stop it, Michael! Stop it! Elizabeth exclaimed, holding out her hand to stop him. Why not? Michael asked in surprise. We read the rules together. If a player makes the last winning move, some ancient evil will be unleashed, Elizabeth explained. I don't want to continue playing this game. I'm afraid of it. Come on, Elizabeth, Robert smiled. It's not scientific. You know that even such an unusual board game cannot be a catalyst for the release of any energy, even paranormal energy. Miriam nodded in agreement. He's right. It's just a silly superstition. Remember, Lizzie, we bought this game at a rummage sale at the old house. How many powerful artifacts did you see at the sale? Michael said. Elizabeth shuddered. That's what scares me, and something about this game gives me the creeps. But that didn't stop Michael. Come on, guys, we've come this far. Let's finish the game. Every evening, the friends gathered at Michael's house in the attic, which had been converted into a room, to play the unusual board game Beyond the Board. The teenagers' interest was fueled by the fact that they hadn't found any information about this game on any gaming forum. That morning, Michael, the 13-year-old leader of company, whom his friends called M, called all three of them in turn. His voice rang out from the phone. Meet me at the fire station. Come quickly, and take your pocket money with you. When Robert and Elizabeth rode their bike to the meeting point, they saw Michael dancing with excitement, with Miriam standing by his side. Let's go, hurry up! The leader's voice rang with tension. Where are we going? What happened? The group drove out into the street and M started. You know, that old man Dawson's house has finally moved in. Today, they organized a sale of all sorts of junk from the house. I was there this morning. And what did you find? Robert shouted as he walked. Why the money? Michael didn't say anything, just pedaled harder. A sale was set up on the lawn near the old house. Michael jumped off his bike, glanced at the items laid out, and his tense face took on a calm expression. Here it is. His finger pointed to a box with a game called Beyond the Board. At the headquarters, there is in the attic converted into a room in Michael's house. The friends looked at the treasure. Elizabeth was reading the rules of the game. It's strange, said Robert, a wiry boy with glasses. Despite his status as a smart boy, he was probably the strongest in the class. He combined his love of learning and sports. The game doesn't seem to be new, but I haven't seen any information about it anywhere. Looks like an exclusive, nodded Miriam, a beautiful dark-eyed girl who had joined the group out of sympathy for Robert. But then she shared a common interest in board games. Dungeons and Dragons and Small World were her favorite games. Elizabeth gave up studying the rules and looked around the company. Lizzie, as Michael called her, was a frail blonde who also had a visual impairment and wore contact lenses instead of glasses. "It's a strange game, Em, and a bit creepy," she said, looking him in the eyes. "Tell me about it," the boy replied. "The game itself interesting. Adventures, monsters, interesting locations, everything you like. But the ending of the game leads to the release of some evil entity called Belaufa the Devourer." "Interesting," Miri exclaimed. "Then let's begin." "You don't understand. It says here that Belaufa will be unleashed for real, and that it's not just the players who will be affected." Lizzie was still looking at Michael. "Come on, Lizzie," he laughed and reached for the dice. "My move is first." "I win." Michael smiled as he rolled the dice and moved his piece. As soon as Michael placed his piece on the board, the room around them began to change. The walls disappeared, and the floor turned into a swirl of pitch black. The board itself began to glow and ring slightly, and the pieces began to move on their own, as if controlled by an invisible force. Suddenly, the board turned into a portal that instantly began to absorb everything in the room. The teenagers rushed to the door, but it was too late. They were being frantically drawn to the portal. A moment in the passage turned into a millennium. Their bodies were distorted as if they had no bodies and were things in a washing machine. Their minds were assaulted by a cacophony of images and sounds. It seemed that in another moment they would all become patients in a psychiatric hospital. And then it was over, and they were on the other side. It was clear at a glance that they were not in their hometown or even on the earth. In the middle of a deserted wasteland, only their shadows kept them company, and mountains of twisted metal, stones, and unknown material rose around them. In the distance, they saw a massive figure. Evil seemed to flow from it like a thick stream of mud. It made them want to curl up, close their eyes, and scream furiously. The giant was slowly approaching them. It was Belaufa the Devourer, an ancient evil deity who had been imprisoned between worlds for thousands of years. And now, thanks to their curiosity, it had been set free again. Michael looks around desperately. The portal has disappeared, leaving them in this frightening otherworldly place. Robert froze in place, almost knocked down by what he saw. Miriam shakes her head in disbelief with crazy eyes, and Elizabeth cries quietly, hiding her face in her hands. The first to recover, Michael grabs Miriam and Lisa's hands and drags them away. Running past Robert, he shouts, "Come on, mate, we've got to go," and kicks him. He tries to keep up, whimpering softly. Despite all his physical training, his psyche was not ready for such stress. The loud echo of their hurried footsteps, as if in an empty room, almost presses against the surface, slowing down the panicked run. They seem to be running in one place, not knowing where to hide. Finally, the teenagers stop, gasping for air, in a dark, twisted forest whose trees seem to reach the sky. "We have to keep going," Michael says in a firm voice, looking back at his friends. "We have to find a way out of here." Suddenly, Robert's body is thrown away from the group, his right arm disappearing up to his elbow. The stump ends in a red spot. Michael and the others frantically grab onto him, pulling him along, trying to escape from who knows what. But the nightmare continues. Robert's entire arm disappears, leaving only a few red balls in the air. The pain is unbearable, and Robert screams in agony. And just as suddenly, his leg disappears right up to the knee. He falls to the ground, helpless, scratching the ground with his left hand. Miriam, crying, grabs his hand, trying to lift Robert, and immediately falls forward. In her palms, she clutches only his left hand, which is wet with blood. Michael, his eyes almost white with shock, pulls Miriam and Liz away from their dead friend, tears streaming down his face. Choking on tears and fear, the friends finally reach the edge of the forest. "Oh, Robert!" cries Miriam. Michael sat down and put his hands on his head. Then he stood up abruptly and asked, "Lizzie, do you remember the damn manual? Do you remember if it says how to defeat this monster?" Elizabeth turned her distant gaze to Michael. Then her eyes dawned with realization, and she said, "There were lines on the back cover. When the first wakes the oldest, the last will overcome the disaster in his own house."